on the board of directors during the time when all these lawsuits are going on. In the West Star lawsuit, he actually is referred to as the point man on this. He's communicating with the attorneys, with the experts, and this, that, and the other. The West Star case gets settled. The experts in that case for the HOA say that it needs another $1 million in waterproofing to bring this thing up to snuff. They settle for about half that, and they hire a company called CHI to come in and do the waterproofing. CHI submits a number of bids. Samuelson, again, is the point man. Samuels is the point man on this. The HOA, Board of Directors, votes to approve $118,000 worth of repairs. CHI, which also happens to be like phase 1. I guess it was like a 4-phase repair, and phase 1 is $118,000. They agree to that. CHI writes them a letter and says, we're happy to do the work, but we're going on record as telling you it's not going to do anything unless you do the remaining 3 phases. This is just phase 1. Board of Directors says, thank you very much, do the work. They do it, they pay it, they move on. Flash forward to 2003. Samuels decides that he's going to cash in on some of the equity on this property, so he sells it. And he sells it to Larry Calamine. Larry moves in, and lo and behold, 2005 comes along, pretty wet year, and once again, there's flooding. I should flash back to the actual purchase agreement. Samuels is actually pretty decent when it comes to disclosing things. On his TDS, where it says, have you experienced any grading problems, leaking, this, that, and the other, he checks yes. That's about all he does. He just checks yes. The physical inspector comes through and says, yeah, I definitely see signs of past water intrusion here. It looks like it's coming from below grade. Looks like there's waterproofing issues, this, that, and the other. Highly suggest that you address this with the seller, maybe get a professional contractor to come in and take a look at it. So Calamine and Samuels meet at the property, and there are witnesses to this because it's in the record that they meet, and Calamine asks him what's up with the water intrusion, and Samuel says, yeah, it used to leak pretty bad actually. Whenever it would rain, it would leak. So what we did is we had a contractor come out, they dug all around, put a French drain in, re-waterproof, dug down below grade, re-waterproofed that whole area, painted it all up nice, and I haven't had any problems with it since. Calamine says, okay, I'm convinced, I like the unit, I'm going to close escrow. A pretty good disclosure, but really, I mean, there was a lot of information that Calamine had that he didn't disclose, like the fact that there was a suit against the original developer, and the fact that there was a suit against the guy that did the repairs in the other lawsuit. The fact that there was a report saying you're putting a Band-Aid on this when you need to put, a bigger Band-Aid on it, a more expensive Band-Aid. None of that was disclosed. So, flash forward to 2005, Calamine has flooding. He goes to the board of directors, and they say, oh yeah, well, the history of this place, right? They give him all the information, he finds out all the stuff for the first time, sues Mr. Samuels for non-disclosure. So Mr. Samuels hires a pretty good lawyer and files what's called a motion for summary judgment. For those of you who've never had the pleasure of being sued, there's a variety of ways that you can get out of a lawsuit. And a motion for summary judgment is one of those. What you're always trying to do if you're a defendant is avoid trial, because trial is real lengthy, it's very expensive, takes up a lot of your time, and you put your fate in the hands of 12 people. It's much better if you could just write a motion and ask the judge to dismiss the case, and that's what a summary judgment motion is. So he does this, and he uses as his base a long line of case law in California that basically says, whether you're a seller or a broker, your disclosure obligation is to put the buyer on notice of issues. You don't necessarily have to disclose absolutely every single detail of something, but you put them on notice. He puts his TDS into the record with the summary judgment motion and says, I checked the box, yes. Here's a deposition transcript where Mr. Calamine admits that we had this conversation where I told him, yes, it leaked. I had repairs done. This is what I did. I detailed the repairs. I mean, how much more notice can I put this guy on? The trial court says, absolutely, you're right. You have disclosed your duties under California law. You have absolutely disclosed your duties. Motion granted. You are no longer a defendant in this case. when that happens, when you lose a summary judgment motion, you have the option now of appealing. And that's where you go above the trial court, you go to the appellate court. The appellate court takes a look at it, and they say, I don't think so. I don't think that you did disclose everything that you knew. So I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to send you back down to the trial court, and I'm going to instruct the trial court to send this case to trial. And what was it that the appellate court didn't like? Well, they said, you know, there was information that Calamine had, or I'm sorry, that Samuels had, that he didn't disclose. He knew that there was a suit against the developer. He didn't disclose it. What was Samuels' response to that? Samuels' response was, there was no pending litigation. It says in the TDS, pending litigation. There had been no pending litigation for 10 years by the time I signed this TDS. I had never had a problem since the early 90s with my unit. Appellate court disagreed. They said, you know what? You should have given Calamine the benefit of the doubt. You should have given him the information about the lawsuit, the information about the subsequent lawsuit, the information about the inadequacy of repairs. That was information that you had that you didn't disclose. We don't know if it would have made a difference at all to Mr. Calamine's decision to purchase, but we're going to let a jury decide that. So that's kind of a scary case because, again, I mean, you know, everyone's assumption has always been you give enough information to put the buyer on notice of a problem. So, so what can we take away from this case? Well, you know, the mantra that lawyers always give out is disclose, disclose, disclose. So I guess tack on two more after that, disclose, 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 disclose. Because now, I mean, you know, if you read this case, you know, I mean, that was a pretty good TDS, and I mean, it was pretty amazing that they actually had like testimony from the buyer that detailed this conversation. I mean, if I were the defense counsel in that case, I would have felt pretty good about going into my summary judgment motion with that kind of information. And obviously they won at the trial court level, but the appellate court decided, no, not enough. Go back and try to convince a jury that you disclosed enough. So, you know, the bottom line is, the question always comes back to us. Well, if I had a problem repaired, you know, do I have to disclose it? And I guess the answer now is yes. It really is. I mean, look at Mr. Samuels. He's fighting for his life in front of a jury. What's that?
Who won the case?
I don't think it's even gone back to trial yet. Because the thing is, I mean, the judicial system works really slow. So the court, you know, it takes years to wind your way through the appellate court. And then once you do, you have to go back to the trial court now. And now you have to go back to this judge that granted the summary judgment motion and say, well, give us a trial date. Well, most judges can't give you a trial date more than about a year in advance. So who knows? It may be a trial right now. And the appellate court definitely said, look, we're not you know, condemning Mr. Samuels, and we're not saying, Calamine, you win. It may very well be that he goes to the jury and the jury says, you know what, I think he disclosed enough. I don't think this information about the lawsuit and the previous repairs and all that was really relevant to his unit. I think he disclosed enough. I mean, he could still win the case, but he could also lose the case too. Yes?
So what do you estimate the lawyer's fees will be when the trial